Who is going up and down from the EFL Championship in the 23-24 season? Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to yet another video. As I say, today we are looking at who might be going up to the Premier League and down to League One from the EFL Championship today. Before we get into the video, let's go for a big like target of 750 likes. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button on this video as we are talking about each and every team in the EFL Championship this season and seeing what their chances are of going up or going down this season. So get involved if you like your EFL Championship content. While you are there, also make sure to hit the subscribe button. It's free to do and we are pushing towards 60,000 subscribers next, so make sure you've clicked the subscribe button. And finally, on top of that, feel free to predict down below which teams you think will make the top 2, the top 6 and finish in the bottom 3 of the EFL Championship this season. With all that said and done, let's talk about the teams in the EFL Championship. And as you can see next to me, we have got the 1 to 24 table beside me, and there is so much to play for. Obviously, if you've been keeping up with the EFL Championship this season, you'll have seen there's been many twists and turns. If you cast your minds back just a month or two, you had Leicester City and Ipswich Town running away with it. Leeds and Southampton were in pursuit for that. The playoff race was wide open and the relegation battle seemed a little bit closed off with Rotherham, Sheffield Wednesday and QPR as that bottom 3. Well, since then, quite a lot has changed and some things have stayed the same. At the top, Leicester City still lead the way, but it's Leeds United who have jumped into second and Southampton into third. Do obviously bear in mind the games played as well, guys, with Southampton having a game in hand. If they were to win that, which is actually playing out tomorrow against Hull City, a game we will live stream on the channel, then they would actually jump into second place. In fourth place now we find Ipswich Town, with the other playoff places right up for grabs, currently occupied by West Bromwich Albion and Coventry City, closely followed by Norwich, Hull, Preston and a few other teams clustered in the middle of the table between 44 to 47 points. It's very tight in that region of the table. Down at the bottom, it's been quite interesting. Rotherham United have started to become cut adrift. It did seem as if they were going on a little bit of a decent run under Taylor a couple months ago, but really they have become cut adrift. Meanwhile, Sheffield Wednesday and QPR still occupy the 2 other relegation places, but you can see how tight it's become with Millwall, Huddersfield, Stoke City, Swansea, even Blackburn and Plymouth not entirely safe of the drop right now. So then, as you can see, there is a lot to play for, and I would say there's pretty much something to play for every team. Even the teams in the middle of the table maybe have an outside chance of the playoffs or could still get sucked into trouble, so they're still worth keeping an eye on. My observation looking at this table, I'm going to draw a little line here. Now, I know things could change through the next few weeks and I expect they will, but right now that 4-point gap between Middlesbrough and Cardiff, bearing in mind Middlesbrough have just beaten Leicester City and Cardiff are on a bit of a poor run, that seems to me to be the split in the table right now. As I say, that could close over the next couple weeks, but when I look at Middlesbrough, Bristol City, Watford, they're in no danger of going down in my opinion. Those sides should be looking up towards the playoffs as they have an outside chance. When I look at Cardiff, Birmingham and Plymouth, yes, it's not impossible they could make the playoffs, but on points they are closer to the relegation zone, so I think those teams have just got to make sure they steer clear of trouble and possibly strive for a top half finish. Birmingham City have been better under Tony Mowbray, and it is worth mentioning now that I do wish him all the best, as it's come out today that he's now going to have to step away for a few weeks due to medical reasons. Plymouth, Argyle and Cardiff City throughout the season have been pretty solid, so I don't think they'll be in much trouble, but like I say, these teams just yet aren't entirely safe. So like I say, with Middlesbrough being in 13th, only 7 points off the playoffs, and with Cardiff being in 14th, only 8 points clear of 22nd, that to me seems like a little bit of a gap where we can put a line and say the teams above the line should be striving for the playoffs, the teams below it just got to get away from trouble. But like I say, a lot can change. There's still a third of the season to go. So then, that is the championship table as it stands right now. Something I found online which was quite interesting that I wanted to highlight was a virtual table, and here it is. This table is quite interesting because it spreads the teams out based on the points between certain places, and as you can see, Leicester City have that 9-point gap over Leeds United, so Leicester City are looking pretty comfortable at the top of the table. Then it's quite close between Leeds, Southampton and Ipswich. Then there's another big gap before you come on to West Brom, Coventry, Norwich and Hull, who are all really really squeezed together tightly around the 6th place playoff cutoff. And then, as you can see, there's a few teams spread out there in the high 40s and mid 40s that, as I say, if they put a good run together, they could be in with a shout of the playoffs. And then there's that 4-point gap I spoke about before you come on to Cardiff. Then Birmingham, Plymouth and Blackburn and Swansea, who are all kind of joint together. Just after that, Stoke, Huddersfield, Millwall. And then, as you can see, it's quite close there with QPR just behind. Sheffield Wednesday 3 points behind QPR, so still in with a chance. But then Rotherham 10 points behind Sheffield Wednesday. So right now, I think all of us can make that general observation that Leicester City do look like they're going to be going up. Rotherham United do look like they're going to be going down. But otherwise, there's still quite a lot to play for. Let's have a little look at the Championship form table over the last 10 games. And as you can see, Southampton have the best form. Yes, they did lose last week to Bristol City, but they did get back to winning ways at West Brom. And that incredible run that they went on, 25 games unbeaten, obviously highlighted here in the last 10 games form table in the EFL Championship. Southampton top, Leeds United in second. So as you can see, there's not a lot to separate them. Even when it comes down to form, there really isn't much to separate those two. Coventry City going strong in 3rd place in the Championship form table over the last 10. Then it's Leicester City who are top. So despite Southampton and Leeds slightly having the better form over the last 10 games, for me it doesn't look like it's to enough of an extent for them to close the gap really on Leicester. It's possible, and we will come on to the fixtures next, where we know Leicester City have got Leeds United away next and Southampton at home in a few weeks' time, which will be interesting. But it does really look like a shootout between Leeds and Southampton. And let's not rule out Ipswich, albeit their form is 10th. So they're not playing bad, and with 66 points at this stage, they're almost guaranteed a playoff spot now. They still have a good chance of making the top 2 with the points they've already accumulated and the game in hand against Rotherham at home to come. It does look close though between Leeds, Southampton and Ipswich, and with a third of the season to go, it'll be a strong finish that has to win it for one of them. You can also see the likes of Norwich City, West Brom, Hull City, Preston, obviously playoff chasers, all in that region of the table, all with playoff form right now, so certainly worth keeping an eye on them. And down near the bottom, Rotherham have the worst form. Interestingly, Blackburn sliding down the table as things stand with the 23rd worst form, Swansea 22nd, Cardiff 21st, and the two you really need to highlight looking in the middle of the table are QPR in 15th and Sheffield Wednesday in 12th, both earning over a point per game over the last 10 games. And if they keep that up and the other teams down there continue their form, then QPR and Sheffield Wednesday will survive. Right then, enough of looking in the past, let's look to the future. Let's have a look at every team in the Championship's next 6 games and see who's got a slightly easier run in the table compared to the teams around them as we come up to Easter. So then, looking at the top 4, you can see Leicester City have Leeds away, big game there. Then QPR at home, Sunderland away and Hull City away, 2 tricky away games there, before Southampton at home and Bristol City away. It does look pretty tricky there for Leicester City, especially with the Leeds and Southampton games, and Sunderland, Hull and Bristol away certainly look tricky as well. And let's not forget QPR have something to play for, but Leicester are top for a reason and they'll fancy their chances of churning out quite a few points from those next 6. Leeds United host Leicester City, then go away to Huddersfield in a Yorkshire derby. They then host Stoke, go away to Sheffield Wednesday in another Yorkshire derby before hosting Millwall and going away to Watford. The Leicester City game is a big one there. The other 2 home games certainly look winnable on paper. Watford, Sheffield Wednesday and Huddersfield away could throw up some surprises, but Leeds United's away form has been improving quite a bit recently. As for Southampton, it's Hull City and Millwall at home before Birmingham away, Preston at home, Sunderland at home and Leicester away. 4 of their next 6 games are at home, but Leicester City away certainly looks a tricky one there, and a few of their home games are against playoff chasers with a lot to play for, so it certainly won't be straightforward for Southampton. As for Ipswich, they host Rotherham, host Birmingham, go away to Plymouth, host Bristol City, go away to Cardiff and host Sheffield Wednesday. The highest placed team Ipswich face in their next 6 games are Bristol City, mid-table in 12th place. So if Ipswich are going to close the gap on the teams in the top 3, this is the chance. They need to churn out at least 5 wins from the next 6 to stay very much in the race. When it comes to the next 4 teams, the playoff contenders, West Brom have Plymouth away, Hull City away and Coventry at home, some pretty tricky games there, before away trips to relegation threatened QPR and Huddersfield before a home game against Bristol City. 6 juicy games there for West Bromwich Albion. They're not playing any of the top 4, so will they fancy their chances of churning out quite a few points? As for Coventry City, the next 2 games are against playoff contenders, Preston North End at home and West Brom away. As a Coventry fan, I must highlight that both of these teams are kind of like bogey teams for Coventry. We then host bottom of the table Rotherham Rotherham before going away to Watford, then Hull City at home, which will be a juicy game, which could be rearranged, I must highlight, if Coventry City progress in the FA Cup, before an away game at Huddersfield around Easter time. Norwich City head away to Blackburn, host Sunderland, go away to Middlesbrough, host Rotherham, head away to Stoke City and have Plymouth Argyle at home. Some winnable games in there for Norwich if they're to continue this brilliant run of form that they're on. They could find themselves in the top 6 over Easter time. Hull City also level on points with Coventry, and Norwich have Southampton away as their game in hand before a home game against West Brom, an away trip to Preston North End, home games against Birmingham and Leicester, and an away trip to Coventry. Plenty of tricky games in there for Hull City, including Leicester City and Southampton, and fellow playoff chasers West Brom, Coventry and Preston. Speaking of Preston up next, they go away to Coventry, host Hull City, go away to Southampton, host Stoke City, go away to Plymouth and host Rotherham. The 3 away games there look pretty tricky for Preston North End. Also the home game against Hull City. Can Preston possibly win 4 or 5 of their next 6 to get into the playoff places over Easter time? Sunderland next up in the table have Swansea City at home, Norwich away, Leicester at home, Southampton away, QPR at home and Cardiff away. The run of 3 games against Norwich, Leicester and Southampton certainly look tricky, but if you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best, and Sunderland need to make up some ground now. Watford in 11th host Huddersfield, go away to Millwall and host Swansea. Those 3 games on paper do look winnable if Watford are to close the gap on the playoff places, before a home game against Coventry City, an away trip to Birmingham City and a home game against Leeds. Those 3 look a little bit more tricky than the first 3 for Watford, I must say. As for Bristol City, who find themselves mid-table, they go away to Sheffield Wednesday, host Cardiff City, go away to Ipswich, host Swansea City, go away to West Brom and host Leicester. All of their away games there are certainly against teams with a lot to play for. The home games against Cardiff and Swansea should be fun, and the home game against Leicester will be a real challenge, but Bristol City have stood up to some good challenges this season. Next up then we find Middlesbrough, who've got Plymouth Argyle at home, Stoke City away, Norwich at home, QPR away, Birmingham away and Blackburn at home. With Middlesbrough not facing any of the current top 6 in their next 6, a real opportunity there for Borough to close the gap on the playoff places. Cardiff City have a run of 4 home games in the next 5, including Blackburn, Stoke, Huddersfield and Ipswich. They also face away trips to rivals Bristol City and Swansea City. Those games look like fun. Cardiff City, as we said, do need to pick up the form. They've only been churning out 1 point per game over the last 10 games. As for Birmingham City, it does look like Tony Mowbray will be missing Ipswich Town away, Southampton at home and Hull City away. Those 3 certainly look tricky against teams in the top half of the table. It's then an away trip to the Den against Millwall. Their home game against Middlesbrough is a game in hand they are catching up on, and a home game against Watford after that. Birmingham City have been improving recently, especially at home. Can they continue to churn the points out in the absence of Tony Mowbray though? Plymouth Argyle's game in hand against West Brom comes next. They then go away to Middlesbrough, host Ipswich, go away to Sheffield Wednesday, go away to Blackburn and face Preston North End at home park. All 6 of those games do look as if they will be tasty for Plymouth Argyle. All 6 of them do have a lot to play for in the table right now. Can Plymouth continue to churn out the points to be a mid-table team? Could they possibly get into the top half of the table? We shall see. Next up we find Blackburn Rovers in 17th place. They go away to Cardiff, host Norwich, go away to Wales again with Swansea City, host Millwall, host Plymouth and go away to Middlesbrough. There's some long away days there and a tricky home game against Norwich City at home. The Millwall at home and Plymouth at home games are the ones Blackburn should be looking to target. They've only picked up 6 points in their last 10 games. Can John Eustace get Blackburn Rovers pushing up the table? Swansea City, with just 8 points in their last 10, do need to pick up the form. They go away to the Stadium of Light before a home game against Blackburn, away trips to Watford and Bristol City, a home game against Cardiff City and an away trip to Sheffield Wednesday. As things stand, the Cardiff v Swansea game does look a big one for both sides. Both have been in poor form, both not safe just yet. Could we see one of the Welsh sides possibly being sucked into trouble this season? Personally, I do feel like Swansea should be okay, but the run of form at the moment has seen them slide into trouble. They need to pick up some points in these next 6. Next up are Stoke City. Stoke City go away to Cardiff in a big game between 2 teams in pretty poor form. They then host Middlesbrough, go away to Leeds, away to Preston, host Norwich and go away to Hull. The next 5 games after the Cardiff game all look pretty tricky as they are promotion chasers. Stoke City need to sort things out and get some points somewhere, otherwise they could be sliding into the bottom 3 as we get to Easter time. Huddersfield Town have picked up 12 points in their last 10. Their current run of points per game over the last 10 games would see them get over the line. Their next 6 games do look tricky though, as they go away to Vicarage Road, host Leeds United, go away to Cardiff, host West Brom, go away to Rotherham and host Coventry. Huddersfield's next 3 games are all against teams in the top 6. Their next game away to Watford also looks quite tricky. The away games to Cardiff and Rotherham could be crucial there for Huddersfield Town. They need to keep picking the points up as they are only 2 points above the bottom three. And finally then we come on to the bottom four, and this is quite interesting. Millwall, who are in poor form, go away to red-hot in-form Southampton, where QPR host bottom of the table Rotherham. If QPR can better Millwall's result, which does look likely this weekend, then QPR will leapfrog them and Millwall will drop into the bottom three. Looking at the rest of Millwall's games, they host Watford, go away to Blackburn, host Birmingham, go away to Leeds and host West Bromwich Albion. Plenty of tricky games in there. If I was a Millwall fan, I'd be looking at the three games, Watford, Blackburn and Birmingham, that run of three, where they probably need to get 2 wins to keep themselves above that bottom three over Easter time. There's no doubt about it, Millwall need to improve. They are sliding towards trouble. QPR, on the other hand, are closing the gap on the teams above them. They host Rotherham before a tricky away game to Leicester City. They host West Brom and Middlesbrough, which also look like tricky games, and then it's an away trip to Sunderland before hosting Birmingham. There's no doubt about it, looking at those games, that there's plenty of tricky ones in there. QPR need to beat Rotherham this weekend and get some points somewhere over those next few to keep themselves above the bottom three once they are out of it. Otherwise, QPR could find themselves falling back into trouble. Sheffield Wednesday's next few games look quite interesting. Home games against Bristol City and Plymouth Argyle. Between that, they have an away trip to Rotherham. They also face Leeds United at home and then Ipswich away before a home game against Swansea City. The Leeds and Ipswich games on paper certainly look the hardest there for Sheffield Wednesday, but let's not forget they did get a draw against Leeds United at Elland Road and only lost 1-0 narrowly to Ipswich this season. Sheffield Wednesday certainly have been closing the gap on the teams above them. If they can continue to churn out the wins somewhere, then they will find themselves getting out of trouble, as there's teams down there that have been playing worse than them. Sheffield Wednesday's approach has been good. They need to go for wins. Draws will only do so much. If they can at least get 2 wins and a draw, or possibly 3 wins out of these next 6, then they will be continuing to churn out the points above a point per game and closing that gap on the teams above them. Can Sheffield Wednesday get out of this? I think they could. Finally, Rotherham United have an away game to Ipswich before facing the 2 teams also in the bottom 3 with them, QPR and Sheffield Wednesday. If Rotherham did have more points on the board, then those games could be interesting, but given the fact Rotherham United are so far cut adrift, even if they were to get 4 points from those 2 games, I still don't think that'll be enough. For me, there is no doubt about it, Rotherham need to win both of the QPR and Sheffield Wednesday games. They also go away to Coventry and Norwich, which are pretty tricky games on paper, before a home game against Huddersfield, which they'd also need to win. So then, that is all 24 teams in the Championship and their next 6 games. And looking at the table beside me, what are my thoughts as we come into the final run-in? Without giving too much away, I think Leicester City will be okay at getting over the line. Even if they do drop points to Leeds United and Southampton, the points they've already got already, with the points that I still think they're going to pick up against other teams in this division, Leicester City should be fine. With 13 games to go, Leicester City only need to win just over half, 7, with 1 draw to get them up to the magic 100 points, which would definitely be enough to get at least top 2 and probably the league. As for second place, I think the requirements will probably be in the high 90s. 1 or possibly 2 teams out of 2nd, 3rd and 4th could find themselves wobbling a little bit, but I do expect the standards to be kept to a high level considering the quality that these teams have got. I'd say about 96, 97 points probably get second place, and of course we need to mention, as always, Leeds United do host Southampton on the final day. That is a massive game and it'd be great if there's something to play for as we head into it. As for the playoff picture, it certainly looks like West Brom, Coventry, Norwich and Hull have the strong positions right now. If Preston can beat a couple of the playoff contenders over the next few games, then they can certainly jump into the top 6. I still wouldn't rule out Sunderland, possibly Watford, Bristol City and Middlesbrough, but those sides do need to put good runs together. I'm talking 4 wins out of the next 5 to really close the gap, because the standard for the playoffs this season does look quite high. Last season, 69 points with a good goal difference was enough to sneak in there. I think it'll be a little bit higher than that this season. 71, 72 points will probably be enough to just get 6th place this season. To do it comfortably, you probably want to get about 73, 74. And if we look down near the bottom, I do think Rotherham are done. I don't like to rule out teams this early on into the season when it's still mathematically possible that they could get out of this, but it does look pretty tricky here for Rotherham, if I'm being honest. It just looks as if they've left themselves too much to do. I still think they'll pick up some points somewhere, but probably land somewhere around 30 points at the end of the season. After that, it really is interesting. Sheffield Wednesday are still 4 points adrift of safety, and if they drop points in the next game or 2, it could become a 6-point gap. But if Sheffield Wednesday can continue to close the gap a little bit, or even just not let it grow over some weekends, then they will get towards the end of the season still with a chance. In my opinion, Sheffield Wednesday just need to continue what they're doing. They're performing like a mid-table team over the last 10 games or so, and that is becoming enough to see them just continue to close the gap on the teams around them. Like I said, this weekend, Millwall Millwall go away to Southampton, Huddersfield go away to Watford. It's possible those sides could both lose, and if Sheffield Wednesday can get a draw against Bristol City or a win, then they will close the gap and it will get interesting. So it still looks like it could be close here for Sheffield Wednesday, but I'm leaning towards them possibly getting out. But I am at the same time kind of 50-50 about it, because they've still got a 4-point gap to catch up on, and if Millwall just get a win out of nowhere, then that could kickstart their survival campaign. It's still kind of too close to call. As for QPR, now that they've shut the gap to just 1 point, it does look like they've got a very good chance of getting out of here, especially with so many teams to claw at here. But like I say, QPR's next 6 games after the Rotherham game, they do look tricky, where QPR could come out of the bottom 3 and then slide back into it. As for the teams above the bottom 3, who do I think could slide in? Well, as I say, Cardiff, Birmingham, Plymouth, those teams are not safe yet, but I do think Cardiff, Birmingham, Plymouth will be okay. Blackburn's form does worry me, but I think John Eustace is a safe enough pair of hands to maybe just get them over the line, but it might not be comfortable. Swansea, their form isn't great, but I have a feeling they might just be okay. I think they've got enough quality to just be okay. And as for Stoke City, I did see them play against Coventry. They didn't look like one of the worst teams in the division, and that's just what they need to be. They just need to be better than 3 teams. I think Stoke might just have enough to get over the line here. Huddersfield Town, they seem to like flirting with danger, but then just getting over the line. There is no Neil Warnock this time, but I still think they might just have enough. If I'm being honest, right now, the team I worry for most is Millwall. Millwall fans, share your thoughts, but the run of form isn't good, and Southampton and Watford next certainly look tricky, and then they also have Leeds United and West Brom a couple weeks after that as well. I'm starting to worry for Millwall here, but like I say, there's so much to play for, there's too many teams involved. I do think it will be between teams 17th to 23rd. Feel free to share your thoughts down in the comments. So then, like I say, that is a deep dive into the promotion and relegation picture. There's so much quality at the top of the table. Leicester, Leeds, Southampton, Ipswich have been the 4 best teams this season. Coventry, West Brom, Preston, Norwich, Hull, they've all been really good this season. They could all get into the playoffs, and down at the bottom, other than Rotherham, it looks too close to call. So like I say, share your thoughts and your predictions down in the comments. Also, like I say, if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a thumbs up on it. It's free to drop a like, and 750 likes would be amazing on this one. Make sure you've subscribed as well, as it is free to subscribe, and we're pushing towards 60,000 subscribers. We'll be back tomorrow for an EFL Championship live stream. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.